We all know that the BBC like to show their bias every week, but this time they actually showed their complete contempt for where you come from. For years, you probably suspected that London media class looked down on anything that happens north of the M25, treating your history and your culture as nothing more than a joke. Well, today Laura Kuenssberg just confirmed it. In an interview that was supposed to be about government policy, she didn't just attack Labour, she openly sneered at the idea that working class culture matters at all, while simultaneously acting as the unofficial press officer for Reform UK Limited. It's a masterclass in condescension. So in this video, we've got the reaction she gets from Lisa Nandy sitting across from her, and the only time you'll ever see a member of the cabinet genuinely horrified by the BBC. Now, I was actually looking forward to the interview with Nigel Farage that he had planned for today, but with Trump threatening more taxes against the UK, it's clear that he's bottled it and didn't want to say anything mean about his best friend.
Give me Greenland or I'll hit you where it hurts. Donald Trump's threat to the UK and allies. Cabinet Minister Lisa Nandy is here, and we were expecting Nigel Farage to join us this week, but Reform tells us he's under the weather. So the Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, set his alarm early at the last minute.
So let's have a look at this interview between Laura Kuenssberg and the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy. Now, usually these Sunday morning shows are predictable dance. Journalists ask a tough question, the politician dodges it, and we all move on with our lives. But not this time. Laura decided to attack the government's record, which is fair enough, it's her job. But look at the specific example she chose to use as a weapon. She didn't attack them on their economy, she didn't attack them on the housing, she attacked them on daring to celebrate a pop-up exhibition in Birmingham about Black Sabbath. Listen to the tone, listen to the absolute dripping disdain in her voice when she says the name Ozzy Osbourne.
This weekend, you're announcing a bit more cash for some museums and praising there being a pop-up exhibition in Birmingham about Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, are you really giving people the kinds of reasons, the kind of policies and plans that they voted for when they gave you such an enormous majority?
Did you catch that? She frames it as if it's absurd, as if investing in culture in Birmingham is a distraction from real politics. This is the mindset of the metropolitan elite. To Laura Kuenssberg, culture is something that happens in the Royal Opera House. It's high tickets in the West End. It's not a heavy metal legend from Aston who conquered the world. She is essentially saying to the people of the Midlands, your heroes are a joke, your history is fluff. Why is the government wasting time on you? And this is where the mask slips. She isn't asking a question on behalf of the viewer, she's projecting her own snobbery to the viewer. She assumes you think art is a waste of time too. But watch Lisa Nandy's face. Usually, politicians are trained to nod and smile and pivot. Nandy doesn't do that. She stops cold. She actually looks shell-shocked.
I'm quite horrified by what you've just said, because actually I think that arts and culture belongs to all of us, and the chance to live a richer, larger life and for young people to have opportunities. And over the last 15 years, the opportunity to do that has belonged only to young people whose parents could afford to pay, depending on where they lived in the country. I think that's an absolute disgrace. I come from a town that gave the world Ian McKellen and the Verve. I can't think of where the route would be for that now. And we make no apology for saying that not only are we trying to cut the cost of living, make life easier for people, raise the minimum wage, cut money off people's energy bills, but we're also restoring the opportunities to people that they deserve that have been denied for them for too long.
I'm quite horrified by what you just said. Perfect. When was the last time you actually heard a serving minister say that to a BBC journalist? She isn't horrified by the policy critique, she's horrified by the casual classism. She calls it an absolute disgrace, and to be fair, she's right. Nandy correctly points out that for the last 15 years, opportunity has been hoarded by people who can afford to pay for it. She brings up Ian McKellen and the Verve, and she's trying to explain that culture is an industry, a ladder, a source of pride. And Laura just stares at her. She doesn't get it. She literally cannot compute why a pop-up exhibition in Birmingham matters. But there's a second layer to this interview that's arguably even more insidious, and the reason why I've not gone with the Richard Tice or the Zia Youssef interview. While she's busy belittling British culture, look how she talks about Reform UK Limited. She doesn't grill them, she doesn't critique their policies, she's actually acting as their hype man. Throughout the entire segment, she frames every single question through the lens of Reform's success. She isn't asking Nandy, is your policy working? She's asking, Reform's beating you, aren't they?
But you've been trailing them in the polls pretty much for a year now. It's not getting you anywhere. Why not?
Well, I completely understand why people would want to protest. We've had the biggest collapse in living standards under the last government since Victorian times, and we've been working really hard to turn that around, but there is no magic solution. Waiting times are coming down on the NHS. We're really pleased about that. It's because of the investment that we've put in, but people are still waiting. And so in every area of the economy, we know that there's more to do and people are frustrated. But I would just say that I think this week has been quite a turning point for reform, because by welcoming Robert Jenrick with open arms into their party, they've shown crystal clear what reform actually is. It's become a vehicle for failed Tories from the previous administration.
And it already had many Conservative defectors in its ranks, and they have continued to be absolutely hammering you in the polls for a long time. And many people might wonder, well, what's your real answer? There's lots of anti-reform rhetoric, but what's your real answer? I mean,
and notice the language that she's using: hammering you, trailing them. She's obsessed with the horse race. She's actively amplifying the narrative that reform is the only game in town. She even calls reform's recruitment of Robert Jenrick a turning point and claims they welcomed him with open arms. She's doing their PR for them. So here's the picture the BBC is painting for you on a Sunday morning. If the government invests in your local museum or celebrates your local legends, that's a waste of time and money. That's fluff. That's not what you voted for. But a party of failed Tories, her words, as well as mine, being reshuffled into a new brand, that's serious business. That's the only metric that matters. They're telling you what to value. They're telling you that your culture is worthless, but the political circus in Westminster, that is everything. It's cynical and out of touch, and for once it was so blatant that even Lisa Nandy, sitting in the chair opposite, couldn't hide her disgust. The BBC is supposed to represent the nation, all of it, not just the bit that thinks Ozzy Osbourne is a punchline.